If you sit very still for a moment, still enough to hear the soft hum beneath your thoughts, you may notice something curious. The world you believe yourself to inhabit is made not of facts, but of stories. And some of the stories are so lovely, so comforting, that we forget to ever look beneath them. Human beings are marvelous weavers of illusion, not because we are foolish, but because we are imaginative. And imagination, you see, is a double-edged lantern. It lights the path, and it blinds us to the ground beneath our feet. There are lies we inherit, lies we sharpen into dreams, lies we cling to because they feel like warm hands in the dark. But the moment you awaken even a sliver, these beautiful lies, so elegant and convincing, shatter like frost touched by morning light. And in the quiet after they break, you discover something you had missed all along. Nothing was ever wrong with the world, only the way you imagined it. Let us wander gently into these illusions together, one breath, one ripple of awareness at a time. If you truly wish to understand why these illusions take hold so deeply, you must wander into the inner landscape where they are born. Not the mind as you usually experience it, a bustling marketplace of opinions, but the quieter mind beneath the mind, the one that whispers in symbols, fears, and half-remembered dreams. From a very young age, we begin weaving stories about who we are, not because we choose them consciously, but because the world hands them to us like costumes waiting backstage. Be this, become that, hold yourself together, or you might disappear. And so we clutch at identity as though it were a life raft drifting in a cosmic sea. We chase certainty the way a child chases fireflies, with wild hope and trembling hands. But certainty, like the firefly, glows just long enough to lure us deeper into the dark. Most of the beautiful lies begin here. In our inability to sit with the mystery of being alive, we imagine that if we can explain the world, we can control it. If we can control it, we can protect ourselves from loss. And if we can protect ourselves from loss, we will finally feel safe. But life, in its gentle mischief, refuses to bend to this logic. It dances rather than obeys. It flows instead of forming straight lines. And every time we resist that flow, we suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because we hold too tightly to the shape things ought to take. We fear silence, mistaking it for emptiness. We fear uncertainty, mistaking it for danger. We fear letting go, mistaking it for falling. And yet if you listen carefully, you may sense an invitation beneath all this striving, a kind of whisper from the universe. You don't need to hold yourself together so tightly. You are never in pieces. So the first crack in illusion begins not with effort, but with a question that slips quietly into the mind. What if nothing you're clinging to is required for you to exist? A question like a pebble dropped in still water, expanding, softening, undoing. As you move a little deeper into this inner terrain, you begin to notice something strange about the mind. It behaves as though it were a small creature living in a very large world, trying desperately to draw maps of a territory far too vast to comprehend. The mind loves definitions, boundaries, edges. It wants the self to be a neatly carved statue, solid, permanent, admirable from certain angles. But the truth is far more fluid. You are not a statue. You are a current, a movement, a shimmering event in awareness that never stays still long enough to be captured. And this terrifies the part of us that seeks control. Because control, you see, is the most seductive of the beautiful lies. We try to control our image, our future, our relationships, even the thoughts that pass through our inner sky. But trying to control life is like trying to sculpt the wind. You exhaust yourself in the attempt, and the wind simply keeps blowing, mildly amused by your ambition. Here, in this stage of the journey, you begin to realize that most human suffering is not caused by what happens, but by the stories we tell about what happens. Stories that insist, this should not be, this must not change, this cannot be allowed, yet life changes anyway. It always has, it always will. And the more tightly you grip the branch, the more the river pulls at your fingers. So the inner landscape becomes a kind of mirror. You see your fears not as enemies, but as misunderstood guardians. Protective, yes, but outdated in their methods. You see your longing for approval not as weakness, but as a very old echo, asking to be met with gentleness. You see your resistance not as failure, but as the mind's last attempt to feel safe in a world that never stops moving. And then another question emerges, quietly but unmistakably, like a lantern appearing in a fog. If you stop trying to hold life still, what new freedom might reveal itself? A freedom not earned through effort, but uncovered through surrender. Let us look at these beautiful lies through different lenses, not to blame ourselves, but to see how they weave themselves into our lives from many directions. From the human point of view, the first lie is the separate self. We believe there is a little me, isolated in a bag of skin, trying to hold onto a role or an image. Alan Watts calls this the skin-encapsulated ego, a hallucination so central that it shapes our language, fears, and desires. We chase approval, validation, success as if proving we exist depends on external applause. But our inner world is restlessly trying to map a vast unknown with the tools of comparison and self-judgment. Spiritually, the lie of separateness is the great illusion. Watts teaches that you are not merely a separate being, you are a wave on the ocean of existence, intimately connected with the whole. This non-dual truth reminds us what we call me and other are not ultimately two. They are movement in the same dance, part and whole, creator and creation, unfolding simultaneously. Philosophically, we see the self as a concept, not a concrete entity. Our identity is a story, a process, not a permanent object. Watts encourages us to treat the I as a happening, not as a noun. This idea undermines the very foundation of the ego's security. There is no fixed me, only the flow of thoughts, sensations, and perceptions ever shifting. In nature, we mirror our true self. Each individual is like a wave arising in the ocean of the universe. In one of his talks, Watts asks us to imagine the cosmos not as a collection of separate objects, but as a single, living dance. You are not just in the universe, you are the universe, expressing itself from billions of vantage points. When you see yourself as the ocean, not just the wave, the lie of isolation begins to dissolve. Existentially, the lie of control is another form of separation. We imagine that by constructing a stable self, we can manage time, fate, change. But, as Watts reminds us, life isn't a machine to be mastered, it is a free dance. Holding on to identity and future is like trying to sculpt the wind, an exercise in effort, anxiety, and resistance. In these lenses, human, spiritual, philosophical, natural, existential, you begin to see how deeply these beautiful lies are woven. They are not merely personal errors, they are patterns. Let us now explore the remaining beautiful lies through further lenses, natural, existential, and cosmic, to see how they intertwine and dissolve. Nature itself, in its rivers, forests, and skies, teaches that separation is a convenience of the mind, not a fact. Watts often used the metaphor of a wave in an ocean. The wave insists it is a separate thing, but in truth it is the ocean. The lie that you are isolated from the world is contradicted by your own physical existence. Your lungs breathe the air of the forest. Your blood pulses with the warmth of the sun. Your being is deeply interwoven with the earth itself. To the natural eye, you are not above nature, but nature emerging as you, an unbroken flow of being. Then there is the lie of control over time. We imagine we can hold on to the future, shape our story, or protect ourselves from change. But for Watts, time itself is a construct, memory, and expectation, and the I that thinks it controls things is born from that very construct. We live moment to moment, yet we cling to yesterday or tomorrow, thinking there is a self who stands apart. Comparing the existential lie is that there is a stable self behind these moments. In truth, you are not a fixed I, but a constantly changing flow. As we are never really separate from our experience, we cannot compare the present to the real past, because memory itself is part of now. There is no controller outside time, for you are time's own music. On a cosmic scale, the third lie is perhaps the most subtle. The belief that you are a separate thing in the universe, rather than the universe itself in motion. Watts invites you to see, you are the primordial energy of the universe, not a byproduct of it. He described the real self as not merely your body or mind, but the entire psychophysical organism plus its entire environment. This is the cosmic lie, the idea that your identity is limited, when in fact your essence is as vast as the stars and as deep as the silent void. To awaken is to realize that the universe is not out there and you are not in it, you are it, dancing in its own mystery. Finally, the lie of control is perhaps the most pervasive. The belief that you can steer life as if it were a machine, that there is a you who pilots every thought, every action. Watts challenged this directly, thinking of yourself as someone who controls your feelings. You, the thinker, watching the thoughts is itself a delusion. In his talks, he pointed out that by dividing yourself into controller and controlled, you perpetuate a fundamental superstition, as though a noun, you could reliably start a verb, to control, indefinitely. Life is not a machine, and you are not a driver. Life is spontaneous. Your being is spontaneous, not managed, but lived. Through these lenses, natural, existential, cosmic, and controlled, the 8 beautiful lies begin to show themselves. They are patterns, habits of thought, metaphors that feel real, until something deeper stirs within and whispers of another way. Here, in the very heart of the journey, something begins to shift. The walls you built, those 8 beautiful lies, begin to sparkle and crack. You realize you have been dancing in a dream made of your own making. The separate self, once so real, trembles under the gentle light of awareness. What you thought was solid, your identity, your control, your future turns out to be more like mist than matter. In that mist, a new clarity appears. You are not a controller standing apart from life. Rather, life is doing you. What you do is what the whole universe is doing at the place you call here and now. You, in your deepest being, are not a separate I, but a wave of the ocean of existence, inseparably alive. This is not a heroic revelation. There is no fist pump, no thunderclap. It is a soft yielding, a quiet exhalation. The ego, with its fierce grip, begins to loosen. You remember another of his teachings. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. Instead, you relax and float. You see now how that lies not in passivity, but in surrender, a surrender so alive it hums with the energy of creation. In this surrender, time itself softens. The past, once a chain of regrets, and the future, once a battlefield of longing, dissolve into a single horizon. This moment, the moment you are breathing in now, Watts reminds us that the present is not just real, it is all there really is. And so, standing here between what was and what will be, you feel a gentle trembling, not of fear, but of openness. The illusion that you are separate starts to fade, like a shadow at dusk. What remains is the fullness of being. Your being and the universe's being are one. As Watts put it, you are the universe experiencing itself. In that moment, you glimpse what lies beneath the lies. A radical freedom. Not freedom as ownership, not freedom as conquest, freedom as painting in the colors of existence, without needing to control the canvas. You see, not just with your mind, but with your body, your heart, your bones, that the struggle to manage life was a kind of resistance, and resistance itself was one of the greatest illusions. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means giving in to the flow, to the dance, to the mystery. And as you give in, something quietly bursts. The 8 lies begin to dissolve, one by one. The separate self, the need for control, the imagined future, they lose their grip, not because they are forcefully expelled, but because they are no longer needed. Their power came from your belief in them. Now that belief is softening. There is a kind of laughter in this, a gentle Zen wit. You realize how playful the universe is, how mischievous. You thought you were the boss, but actually you were never separate. You were part of something much more wondrous than you had allowed yourself to imagine. The realization settles not like knowledge, but like water on grass, slowly, softly, and without damage. And through the cracks of the old self, new light filters in, not a light that defines you, but a light that is you, and you are the light. In that space of light and surrender, you come home not to a place, but to a way of being. In that soft, trembling openness, you arrived at a truth or perhaps a remembrance so simple that it almost slips through the fingers of language. You are not a separate self, observing the universe. Rather, you are the universe experiencing itself. As Alan Watts put it so beautifully, you are the universe experiencing itself. This realization is not a concept to understand, but a shift in your very being. The illusion of control, once so convincing, begins to dissolve. There is no you directing the show from behind the scenes. Instead, life is flowing through you, not because you are driving it, but because you are it. In every breath, every movement, every silent pause, you see how the 8 lies that once held you so firmly were woven from a misunderstanding. The separate self, the fear of change, the need for control, these were not truths but patterns. They were like a dance you learned, but which you never questioned. In the light of this awakening, the dance continues, but now you know. You are not merely a dancer, you are dance itself. Suddenly, time itself relaxes. The past and future, once tools of fear, lose their grip. The present moment expands into a vast horizon, and in that horizon you rest. You realize that what you thought was you was merely a character in a play, and the real self is the entire stage. The ocean is not something separate from the wave is the ocean. Each wave, each form, each breath is simply the universe in one of its infinite expressions. This is not a mystical fantasy, it's a deeply practical transformation. When you live from this place, life's challenges no longer strike you like traumas to be defended against. They come like ripples in an ocean. You feel them, you ride them, but their rise and fall do not threaten your core. The world is no longer something to be conquered or controlled, it is something to be lived from. There is a playful realization, too, that the universe has invited you to wake up, to stop identifying with the little self, and to remember that you are the whole. In this remembering, power isn't seized, it's surrendered, not in weakness, but in trust. A trust so profound that it hums with the energy of existence itself. This awakening, this sudden, subtle shift, is not an endpoint. It is an opening, a doorway you have always lived in, but which you now notice. The 8 lies begin to fall away, not as enemies, but as friendly illusions that once served a purpose, but no longer need to. In the stillness that follows, you feel a peaceful laughter rising. The cosmic joke that you were trying so hard to hold on to yourself, when all along you are the very thing you sought to control. And in that laughter, you rest, not in certainty, but in freedom. After the veil of those beautiful lies begins to dissolve, your inner world takes on a gentler rhythm. There is a softness, a quiet knowing, as though life itself exhales in relief. What once felt like a battle to maintain a self slowly becomes a dance, not forced, but fluid, not tense, but alive. You feel the currents of existence within you. You sense how, in trusting, you become carried, as to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water. Instead, you relax and float. This release is not a weakness, it is a wise strength. You are surrendering not because you have failed, but because you understand that resistance was always optional, and now you choose the flow. With this shift, your relationship to change transforms. Turbulence no longer signals a crash, it is a turning of the current. Challenges feel less like enemies and more like friends, calling you deeper. What was once frightening becomes familiar not because nothing ever hurts, but because your center is no longer threatened. You float in deeper waters now, carried by forces larger than your fears. The 8 lies don't disappear all at once. They fade gradually, like frost in the morning sun, melting into the reality that remains. A profound openness. You begin to see how those beliefs once protected you, how they once made sense, and how now they are no longer necessary. In this new space, you also begin to act differently. Your decisions are not made from a place of grasping, but from a place of listening. You don't steer life, you respond to its calling, to its subtle nudges. This is the wisdom of Wu Wei, the effortless action that Watts often spoke of, acting not against the stream, but in harmony with it. You notice too how your suffering softens. The old anxiety around control loosens its grip. You still feel pain, but the pain is no longer the same. It is not a threat now, it is information. It flows through you, then recedes, leaving behind a quieter sea. And in that silence, you begin to hear a deeper voice, the quiet hum of life itself, whispering, "You are home." In this new way of being, you begin to move through the world as someone who knows she is both wave and ocean. Not separate, not merely an individual self, but a manifestation of something vast and flowing. As Watts taught, you and I are all as much continuous with the physical universe as a wave is continuous with the ocean. Every action feels lighter now. You don't push against life so much, because you sense that you are life, not a passenger, but a part of its unfolding rhythm. There is a gentle trust settling in. You trust the current to carry you, yet you remain capable of choosing, responding, speaking, and creating. This is not passivity, but a refined responsiveness. What Taoism calls Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. When you hear about surrender, you no longer recoil. You understand that surrender isn't giving up. It's a deep, wise alignment. You surrender your grip on the illusion of control, but not on life itself. As Alan Watts once, you are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing. In this way, creativity and freedom bloom. Your actions become more natural, more fluid. You don't force your will into life's cracks. You let life shape you, and you shape life in turn, in harmony. You begin to trust that life's wisdom is not outside you, it is you, breathing and deciding. And in the dance of this trust, you feel a profound belonging. The sense of being just me softens, replaced by something more spacious. You are not an island, you are a node in a web of being. As Watts teaches, the self is not a fixed thing but a movement, continuously arising and dissolving. Sometimes you will still feel fear, doubt, or confusion. But now those things are not your masters, they are passing currents. They come, you meet them, and then you let them go. Because you know you are not separate from the stream. You are the stream. In the stillness that remains, a deep peace wells up. A quiet joy, a recognition. The universe did not forget you. You were never lost. You were simply asleep, dreaming beautiful lies, and now you are waking. If this reflection touched you, let it rest quietly within you and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And so, dear friend, here we linger in the whispering aftermath of awakening. You have witnessed the breaking of the 8 lies, not with violence or force, but with a soft and curious unfolding. In that space, you might sense a subtle trembling, as though the universe itself is exhaling through you. You were never separate. As Alan Watts so beautifully, you are a function of what the whole universe is doing. You are not an alien in the cosmos, you came out of it. Like a wave arises from the ocean, the deep self you longed for was never disconnected. It was always the very fabric of existence, breathing and moving. In this light, surrender becomes not a giving up, but a gentle recognition. The universe isn't something out there to be conquered or controlled. You are the universe experiencing itself. Your identity is not a fortress. It is a doorway, an aperture through which life plays and observes itself. This realization doesn't erase challenges. Pain and fear may still arise, but now they arrive like passing weather, not permanent storms, but shifting clouds over a sky that remains steady. The self that once feared disintegration now knows. To be the wave is to be the ocean, and whether you rise or fall, you belong. There is a quiet humor here, cosmic, tender. Life, in all its beauty and mess, was never a problem to be solved, but a dance to be danced. The I you held so tightly was never separate. It was just one expression of the sea. And now, in this gentle knowing, you rest in belonging. Not because you have changed the world, but because you have remembered the world is you. If this reflection touched you, let it rest quietly within you and share it with someone who might need to hear it.